Rich Rines, thank you so much for your time. You are the initial contributor of Core. Here we are in Nashville at the Bitcoin conference. If I can ask you, how did you start the company? How did you start engaging in Bitcoin and why?
So Core started in kind of the aftermath of like kind of the 2017 cycle where we had seen a lot of like these insider projects, really kind of these projects that had failed to build community that had kind of traded off decentralization for performance. And for the core team, there's kind of this idea that that's kind of the one thing you can't sacrifice as part of the blockchain trilemma. Me personally, I got into Bitcoin in 2013 and was kind of enamored by it, got involved full time after the 2017 cycle. And really, no one was scaling Bitcoin. Like that had kind of been forgotten. So we kind of combined those two ideas of doing something that's a fair launch, much more community-driven initiative with scaling Bitcoin. Now, since early 2023, when we launched, of course, the ground in Nashville, like Bitcoin's really popular again. It wasn't when we launched, but now it's amazing to see all these other groups that are, kind of trying to do similar things to Core. And since then, we've kept delivering more and more products, right? So we've got probably the most active growing Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem with over 200 million in TVL. We've got 55% of the Bitcoin hash rate, now over 300 million in Bitcoin stake. So short time in market, only like 18 months, but we've done a lot and there's a lot more to come.
So, what are you expecting for the future in terms of Bitcoin? Many people say it's still undervalued. What do you expect? Oh, I'm sorry.
For Bitcoin or for yeah. So Bitcoin,
Core, of course, as well.
So Core I can't talk about as much, but for Bitcoin, we're super long Bitcoin. I mean, I think if you look around, like there's an amazing amount of people that are at this conference, we really haven't scratched the surface of what Bitcoin can be. Yes, it's in vogue again, but I mean, there's lots of conversations about like, some large countries talking about strategic Bitcoin reserves. Like the Bitcoin kind of story is still only being, beginning to be written. And it's actually a special role that Core plays as well, where Bitcoin, probably two halvings from now, is in a spot where maybe the security budget's in question. And we'll be able to survive on just transaction fees. No one really knows. But Core actually acts as this second block reward for Bitcoin that helps keep Bitcoin secure and decentralized by rewarding the Bitcoin miners. Over 55% of the hash rate is currently securing Core. And this is like a really important thing for Core to help keep Bitcoin from avoiding tail emissions or, those sorts of situations that none of us want. But Bitcoin's important.
Thank you. You already touched upon it a little bit. What do you think of dollar and versus Bitcoin? Can it take over the market of dollar or?
I don't think Bitcoin's a substitute for dollars, but I think it actually kind of works symbiotically in some ways. Like despite Bitcoin being an alternative traditional financial system, it's actually this perfect collateral asset. And this is where I think most of this will trend is you'll see a lot of people use their Bitcoin and hold that as collateral because they want upside exposure to Bitcoin, but they'll get leverage in the form of dollars. And we'll start to see this in a lot of emerging markets that are underbanked or unbanked. And really that story is beginning to be told because Bitcoin's all about don't trust, verify. Well, if we're both holding the same collateral asset and you're willing to accept that, you no longer need to trust me. And I think we'll see much more of that over the next few years.
Interesting that you say that because, for example, U.S. has put sanctions on countries such as Venezuela, and Venezuela has started trading, among others, in Bitcoin. Do you expect this to grow?
And stablecoins. I think Tether is like effectively like a national currency of like Venezuela at this point. I think we'll see more and more of this because like, again, Bitcoin is the hardest money the world will ever know. And I don't think that will change anytime soon. So we'll continue to see this proliferate more and more throughout the world. I think, again, primarily as collateral, but maybe as a means of payment at some point in the future. But I think that's farther off because Bitcoin itself is not meant to really be a payment system at this point. It's too slow, too inflexible, too expensive. And that's actually where Core actually plays a really important role by helping to unlock, the 1.5 trillion of trapped Bitcoin liquidity.
Are you in partnership with some governments too?
No governments yet, but maybe as a future step.
Thank you. And of course, I have to ask you, we are having here candidates for the President of the United States. Kennedy is here today, President Trump tomorrow. What do you think of that, first of all, that they are here? How big of a deal it is?
So different than a few years ago. Like kind of going back to like the OG Bitcoiner in me, like this was a dream, 10 years ago, and now it's becoming a reality. And I think we'll see more and more of this happen because now it's become a strategic issue in the US. The crypto voice and the crypto lobby is really powerful, and that influence will continue to grow because this is a matter of like national security at some point. I don't pick favorites, I don't pick winners. I have no idea what will happen in November, but I'm really bullish that this is becoming part of the mainstream discourse in America.
Because we know that, for example, President Trump, he used to be a little bit against Bitcoin, right? He almost banned it. Now he received twice $1 million in Bitcoin from two brothers. What do you think changed his mind?
I wish I could read Trump's mind. I think a lot of people in the world wish they could read Trump's mind. But overall, I think it's more that like as you learn and you mature, you go down that kind of Bitcoin rabbit hole. But I do think that it becomes like all things in the world, matter of incentives. And I think people realize that this actually will be strategically important. Let's call it a decade from now. Maybe not immediately today, but over the next little bit. And it's important to get ahead of that because like one of the things the U.S. has done in a lot of ways is been on like the forefront of innovation, and it's important for the U.S. to remain there. And I think not only is there like the lobbying influence, everything else, but there's actually a lot of long-term economic importance to Bitcoin.
And you probably heard what each of the candidates was saying about Bitcoin. Which of them? Now, of course, we probably have Harris instead of Biden, and then Kennedy, Trump. Harris. I have not seen her at any Bitcoin conference yet. Which one do you think would be the best for the Bitcoin market?
Super hard question. I did see that RFK actually recently mentioned that the majority of his wealth is in Bitcoin, which is pretty awesome. I love to hear that. I was not expecting that. I think overall, Trump right now seems to be the winner, but we can't vote. Like, you can vote based on that, but it comes down to the actions afterwards. And I think that's like the scary part right now is like some of the candidates have flip-flopped, and you have to know whether or not that will remain true, especially after getting elected. And there's a lot of fear with the current administration trying to change their tune, but over the last 4 years, been very against crypto. So it's hard, and like we'll have to see what happens in the real world.
Okay, thank you. And if I can, last question: how big of a deal is this conference for you? And what do you think? How the United States is placed if we compare it to other countries in the world and Bitcoin?
So this conference is big. I think it's like kind of the forebear of all crypto conferences, once a year, formerly in Miami, now in Nashville. But it's important. And like what Core is trying to do here is educate people, not just on Bitcoin, but also on Bitcoin yield. Because we've already seen the Bitcoin ETFs this year, and like Wall Street won't stop at spot Bitcoin, neither will governments. They're going to want yield. They're going to want these digital financial products built on top of Bitcoin. And that's a big reason that we're here, is to help kind of get that message out there. I think the U.S. is positioned well, but again, it's a matter of policy, and we're seeing some other nations move a lot faster. And we'll see kind of how that all shakes out. But I do love the renewed interest in crypto from the U.S.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Rich.
Awesome.
It was
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.